Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a single day that quite literally changed the trajectory of human history. We're going back to June 6, 1944. We're going to look closely at the true story, the raw reality, and just the unprecedented scale of the American liberation of Europe. Let's get right into it. So, picture this, June 6, 1944. At this point, the world is trapped in darkness. Much of Europe is suffocating under Nazi control. Millions of people are living in absolute fear every single day. And you have to remember, back then, people firmly believed this war could just drag on for years. There was absolutely no guaranteed end in sight. The operation designed to shatter that darkness, D-Day. It was a calculated, devastating necessity to save the free world. And it was a mission so overwhelmingly dangerous that military commanders fully accepted a heartbreaking reality. They knew thousands of their own men would die before the sun even set.
Part 1. A World in Darkness. The Dangerous Mission.
Moving on to Part 2. Planning the Great Invasion. Unprecedented Scale. Okay, to pull off something this audacious, you need logistics on a scale the world had literally never seen before. For months, Allied commanders operated in total, absolute secrecy to plan the largest amphibious invasion ever attempted in the history of warfare. And this invasion fleet? It wasn't just a few transport boats. No way. We're talking about thousands of ships gathering in the water and thousands of aircraft filling the skies. The staggering amount of mechanical resources they gathered just across the English Channel is, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. But as we know, machines don't win wars on their own.
150,000. That is the monumental number of soldiers tasked with actually boarding those ships and aircraft. 150,000 individuals preparing to directly attack what was basically the most heavily defended coastline on Earth. Just take a second and let that massive number sink in.
But you know what's really heartbreaking? It's who those 150,000 soldiers actually were. I mean, most of them were barely out of high school. This massive, world-saving force was largely made up of young men who had absolutely zero combat experience. They were young kids, stepping right into the ultimate fire. Now think about those final, agonizingly tense hours the night before the invasion. American soldiers are sitting quietly aboard these transport ships. Some are writing their final letters home to their families. Others are just praying in the dark, wondering if they're even going to survive to see the next sunrise. Nobody knew exactly what awaited them. But as dawn breaks on June 6th, the waves are crashing against the landing craft as they approach the shore. And then, the ramps open.
Which brings us to Part 3. Chaos at Omaha Beach. The brutal reality.
The second those ramps drop, American troops come face to face with an absolute nightmare. The German defenses were totally prepared and they were waiting. The moment they stepped out, the troops were met with just devastating machine gun fire and heavy artillery raining down on them from above.
And it doesn't stop there. The beach environment itself was a heavily fortified death trap. You had thick concrete bunkers that were practically immune to light fire, and deadly mines completely hidden all along the approach. Literally everything was engineered to stop this invasion dead in its tracks.
Utter chaos erupted, bullets tearing through the air from every single direction, massive explosions violently shaking the beaches. Honestly, the visceral horror of this moment is really hard to overstate. A lot of those young soldiers never even made it out of the water. And the ones who did, they were forced to watch their friends fall right beside them.
And nowhere was this battle more horrific than at Omaha Beach. The forces are facing completely devastating fire from those elevated German positions up on the cliffs. The panic and destruction were so intense, the commanders actually lost contact with their units. Those carefully planned landing formations, they entirely broke apart. The whole beach was just engulfed in smoke, gunfire, and complete confusion. Actually, for a terrifying moment, the entire invasion hovered right on the brink of total failure.
But then, this incredible turning point happens. Small, totally disorganized groups of American soldiers simply took the initiative, advancing without orders, without waiting to be told what to do, without even really knowing the larger plan anymore. They just started moving. They began climbing those deadly cliffs, taking out enemy positions one by one, and opening up paths for the rest of the forces to follow. One soldier actually summed up that moment perfectly later on. He said, "The only way off that beach was forward." Really let that sink in. They couldn't go back into the water. They definitely couldn't stay still. It was just this raw, desperate courage that drove these young men directly into the fire. And forward they went.
Part 4. Securing the Foothold. The Unified Push Inland.
So, once those initial paths are cleared, the whole momentum shifts. The troops start this unified push inland, fighting their way through occupied territory as the day goes on. And listen, this wasn't just an infantry victory. It was an immense, perfectly coordinated effort of heroism across the board. You've got paratroopers dropping behind enemy lines to disrupt the defenses, Army Rangers scaling sheer cliffs under intense fire, medics risking their own lives sprinting across the beach to rescue the wounded, pilots flying right through incredibly thick anti-aircraft fire, and sailors navigating extremely dangerous waters to deliver vital reinforcements. By nightfall, this unbelievable joint effort had successfully secured a real foothold in France.
Part 5. The Legacy of D-Day, the Cost and the Shift.
The invasion succeeded, yes, but we really have to look at the immense human cost and the monumental shift it caused. The toll was truly staggering. Thousands of families back home in the United States were about to receive the most devastating news imaginable. But their ultimate sacrifice was not in vain. The liberation of Western Europe had officially begun. This single, bloody day successfully cracked the iron grip of Nazi control. Over the next few months, Allied forces pushed deeper and deeper into occupied territory, freeing cities and opening the vital road to final victory.
So you might be wondering, why do military historians still study D-Day so closely today? Well, it's not because the battle plan was executed flawlessly, because we definitely know it wasn't. It's because of who accomplished this. Ordinary citizens, teachers, farm boys, factory workers, students. These were everyday people who simply answered their nation's call and stepped up to achieve something utterly extraordinary.
And the contrast really puts it all into perspective. Back in 1944, Omaha Beach was a living nightmare of gunfire, smoke, and just unimaginable courage. Today, if you stand on that exact same spot, you see peaceful waves and calm sand. It's kind of mind-boggling to look at that tranquil beach now and try to imagine the sheer violence and the world-altering sacrifice of those young men who are now buried so far away from the towns where they grew up.
Which brings us to the core message of this whole explainer. Freedom is never free. On D-Day, America proved that courage can change the course of history. Those ordinary Americans helped defeat one of history's most dangerous regimes and literally changed the future of humanity.
I want to leave you with a final thought today. How will future generations remember and honor the sacrifices made by ordinary people to protect global freedom? It's a heavy question for sure, but one we all carry the responsibility of answering. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and keep reflecting.